Today on SCC, can money buy respect in the hobby? The crew discuss. Then later, the crew give their insights on how to build your hobby brand. Coming up now on SCC.
Welcome to episode 44 of Sports Cards Culture. I'm here with Josh at Cardboard_Chronicles, Kristina at Kristina's PC, Nick at Stiff Arm Wax, and I am Chris_HOJ on Instagram. Up first, content partnership with Slab Stocks. Earlier this week, Kristina, Josh, and I appeared on the SlabStox YouTube channel with Aaron and Nate of the SlabStox team. We went on their show to commemorate the beginning of our content and data partnership with SlabStox. Starting this year, 2022, Card Ladder will be the data source for SlabStox's sports card content, and we will also collaborate with them from time to time to make co-branded content using Card Ladder data. And they have been a leading content and analysis brand in the sports card industry for the last half-decade. They currently have over 55,000 Instagram followers, and they create engaging topical sports card content on Instagram 7 days a week, much like we do. They also can be found making unique content for YouTube, Twitter, Facebook, and at SlabStox.com. So Josh, before we move on, please say a few words about our new partnership with SlabStox.
Pretty excited about it. Those guys, they cover an area of the hobby, frankly, that we don't cover as well, and that's the more investing side of things. And we've always focused on collecting, and so we've got a pretty big chunk of our user base that uses the tool for those means, and we thought this is a good partnership to help us out, help them out, and it makes a lot of sense for their content, and like I said, it makes sense for our user engagement and helping us understand some of those use cases better.
Definitely. And they're helping us to make our platform better. We're helping them to fuel their content with reliable, vetted data, which is what we specialize in. When we were on the stream, Josh made like 3 or 4 tweaks as we were talking, and still somehow managed to be fully engaged in the interview as well. Quite the multitasker. Kristina,
yes,
please say a few words about our new partnership with SlabStox as well.
I mean, I think Josh said it best. Putting Card Ladder data, accurate, transparent data, into the hands of even more people is just what's best for the hobby.
Making sports cards accessible to everyone. That's their mission statement. All right, moving on. We have a new Card Ladder feature. And Kristina, I know you haven't looked at the show notes in detail, so just don't look.
Okay.
What would you say are Card Ladder's 2 most powerful, most popular features?
I would say sales history.
Yes,
is definitely one of them.
for 2. All right. What's the other one?
Most used and most popular.
And most powerful.
Most powerful.
But remember, Kristina doesn't like games.
Get it right. Don't do whatever you do. Don't let us down.
It is also popular.
It's very popular.
Okay, it is popular. Okay, because that's okay. Collection.
Yes. Wow. Why do I even write the scripts? Do you just know everything? Okay.
I do.
Collection.
Take note.
Collection feature and sales history are probably Card Ladder's 2 biggest, most popular features. And this week, we rolled out one feature that brings the 2 of them together. You can now quite literally add a card to your collection with one click. Friction at an all-time low. Just one click, card is in your collection. Josh, tell us about this new feature that you rolled out today for Card Ladder.
Yeah, so we had like 4 or 5 people message me, and Chris and I argued about it. We were very confused about it, but the more that we talked about it and worked through it, like, it does make sense. It's just not the way that we would do it. So I think that's where our trouble was. And again, this is like why the SlabStox thing is so helpful, because they're able to help us see things that we didn't see otherwise, which is what you want when you're building a product. So basically what the feature is on the sales history, when you find a sale, and let's say that you find the sale of your actual purchase, there's a plus button on the sale profile, and you'll be able to click on that, and it will just automatically generate a template for you to create and add a card to your collection using the details from that sale. So it'll autofill your purchase price, purchase date, the image, the details off the slab, like the player name, the set, the year, all that stuff. And then it'll also inject all of the estimation and the player index automatically, so you'll be able to get the same estimated value that you got from the sale profile and sales history in your collection. So that There's a few things I hadn't thought of when we first talked about it, Chris, and once I actually like added it all up, it's like, oh look, it actually is pretty slick.
I actually used it today.
How did you use it?
I used it because I just bought a card yesterday, and it hasn't arrived yet, obviously, so I don't have it in hand. Using the picture from the sales history and inputting it right into my collection was just like pretty seamless while I'm waiting for the card to come in, so I could take a nice scan of it.
Yep. So that is the use case. If you're just browsing sales history, you see a card that you once purchased, and you say, man, wouldn't it be nice if that was in my collection? With one click, it's in. And the image, if it exists, gets pulled in as well. But if you want to change the image, you could do that too. Okay, before we move on, I want to quickly thank sports card Instagram accounts Iconic Card Collector, Exquisite Collector, and Dallas88228 for making the suggestion. Thank you, guys. Okay. Can money buy you respect in the hobby? Veteran collector Windy City Sports Cards on Instagram wrote something a few days ago that went viral in the sports card community. And I'm going to read it in full, and then we'll react. Okay, so here's what he wrote. Big money doesn't mean you are an expert. There are too many people out here with the funds to buy anything they want, and all of a sudden they become sports card Yoda. You got to put the years in. You can't buy the knowledge that us collectors have accumulated over time. Just because you can buy whatever cards you want, that doesn't mean you get my respect. I've been laughing for the past year or so at all these newbies and clout chasers acting like know-it-alls and experts. Too many people out here respecting a person's pocket more than their character. Karma is a mofo. Rant over. That was a hot take. So, Josh, what is your reaction to this? Why do you think this was a popular statement among the sports card Instagram community?
Yeah, so a little bit more background on Windy City Sports Cards. His name is Gerald. He's been in the hobby for a really long time. He has an unbelievable collection of Michael Jordan, primarily exquisite. I know he also has some really nice LeBron stuff. He's been in the hobby for a really long time. I always see him at all the shows. We always have a nice chat. Great guy. My reaction is that I think a lot of people have been feeling this, and he's just kind of saying it, and he's kind of saying what a lot of us are thinking. This was the most shared story that I can ever remember. Like, I think I saw like 30 people share it, and I think that kind of tells you what you need to know about this, that a lot of people are agreeing with what he's saying. I've been on the other side of it though, where like I've been maybe like 1 to 2 years into the hobby, and I've started to like pick up on patterns and want to like teach some things that I've noticed. So you still want to be able to like give back to the hobby and be able to educate and teach on what you have learned so far. I think he's picking more specifically on people that are kind of like flexing their money and using that as their means to get ahead in the hobby. And so that's definitely the thing that I'm not a fan of either. So I agree.
There's a meme or like a graph out there that sort of like sketches the development of knowledge in a particular field, and you start off thinking you know everything, and then the next phase is realizing you know absolutely nothing, and then ending sort of at this ending point where like you're sort of comfortable knowing a few things. That's sort of the arc of the building of knowledge. Kristina?
Yes?
What is your reaction to all this? And more specifically, do we have a problem in our industry of thinking money can buy respect?
I definitely think so. Like, I think that, I think it's not just our industry, though. I think that it's a privileged view that people bring into whatever they're doing. I definitely don't think that it's unique to sports cards that there are people that act like this. I think it is a problem, but it's also like a problem if you want to engage with it. Like, you could be a collector and not be in the hobby. Like, you could just buy nice cards and be a collector. But if you want to call yourself a hobbyist, then that's different. And that means that you're in the weeds of like what's happening all over the industry and in card shows, in local card shops, on social media, and that is a completely different beast than buying nice cards from big auction houses.
Well said. And I'll just chime in this much. I share Windy City Sports Cards' concern And my particular worry is that people who come into the hobby and think that they can remake it in their own image and their own desires, when that's throwing aside the years and decades of tradition that literally got it to the point that it's at today. So while it's not logically sound to say just because something used to be one way, it must always be that way, or that because something used to be one way and it became successful that you have to continue on in that fashion in order to continue being successful. But I say lean into tradition and lean into the likelihood that the things and the traditions and the practices of collectors that built this hobby to what it is today are probably worth preserving going forward. And it's better to just pump your brakes when you're new, look around, learn from the great collectors who have come before, and take in that wisdom and then integrate it into your own style.
French Revolution style.
Nice.
You know, it's not just for the hobby, but I think life in general. People have a much deeper, genuine respect for someone that has like real, genuine knowledge and interest in a topic than just using their money to get ahead. And so, like, it wouldn't just be the hobby where that's frowned upon. I think, you know, any, like, the stock market, if you collected cars, I think there's just a much more of a rich appreciation for someone who understands the depth of something and has genuine interest in it versus just coming in with a bunch of money. So I think if you see this and you want to make some adjustments in your own personal, you know, brand or persona on the internet, I think it's just that you just got to put in the time and think about things on the, you know, the passion side versus the money side.
Nice. So
I think that, like, I do want to, like, tip my hat and maybe be a contrarian, since we all just agreed with Windy City's statement, and say, like Chris was talking about, that sketch of, like, people coming in thinking they know everything. That view, like, they might not realize that they're doing what they're actually doing to an outside perspective. So I guess either have patience or just write them off. Like, you don't have to get into the drama, just ignore those people.
Kristina is maybe forming the basis for her own Instagram story rant, perhaps there. Okay, there's still a bit of time left in this episode. So we've been through 3 segments, but I wrote a bonus fourth. If we got through the first 3 quickly, we did. So for our bonus topic today, I want to talk about hobby brands. And no, Kristina, I don't mean hobby companies. I mean the personal brand that each of us in this hobby possesses. Whether you're a collector, investor, a dealer, an entrepreneur, or an employee, you have a personal brand in the sports card community. So think to yourself, what is your personal brand? Now, one of the traditional ways that collectors acquire personal brands is by player collecting. So what if you were to ask yourself, how many collectors do you know that can be defined simply by the player that they collect? How many times have you met someone at a show and broken the ice by saying, who do you collect? Think about Kristina. What is her personal brand? Well, part of it includes the fact that she is the preeminent Maxi Kleber collector, and as a result of building that brand, she gets DMs from people sending her rare Maxi Kleber cards that they found and that they think she might be interested in. Another way to build a brand is by becoming a subject matter expert. So think of Brett from Stacking Slabs. His personal brand involves being passionate and knowledgeable about professional wrestling. But no one is limited to just one brand, so think about Lameme James. His personal brand revolves around making memes that poke fun at the hobby. And who does he collect?
Trae Young.
Trae Young.
F1, yeah.
Okay, so these are the multiple components of his personal brand. So, Josh, what are some advantages of having a clearly defined personal brand in the hobby, and how has your personal brand influenced your advancements in the hobby over the last 5 years?
Oh man, there's so many advantages. I think it helps you find your community a lot faster, and it helps you enjoy the hobby a lot quicker. Like you'll figure out who has similar interests in the things that you have interest in, and you've sort of like cultivated this brand around you, and certain people will gravitate towards that brand as well and want to communicate with you, and so you'll build a pretty sweet network of other people to chat with about that. I also think it gives a lot of confidence to, like, whatever your brand is, it gives confidence to other people who might be interested in that same thing. For example, like my brand being sort of Penny Hardaway when I first started, it was like, you know, he's sort of a second or third tier player, but it gives a lot of other people who collected him confidence to kind of continue on their journey. And I think that can also help you financially if you're looking for another, side benefit there, which shouldn't be the primary focus. But I think lastly, it just kind of helps you have more fun in the hobby. It gives you something to focus on. It gives you something to, look forward to and build over a long period of time. Because one of the things I've learned over the years is if you try to do too many things and you try to like spread yourself too thin, you're just not going to be great at anything, and you're not going to really be fully happy. Whereas if you focus on a few things and you go all in on those things and you're very good at them, you'll find a lot of joy in those things. And I think focusing on a brand can really help you with that. How has my personal brand influenced my advancement? Well, I think that, the Cardboard Chronicles brand has really been about, education and storytelling in the hobby. And I think it's brought me a lot closer to the whole community, just because everyone has a story, everyone has something in the hobby that they want to share. And so that's really allowed me to, meet a lot of people in the hobby and advance my network pretty greatly.
Excellent insight there. On the personal brand aspect of this of things. So much of that resonated kind of with me in my own path. Kristina.
Yes. How
easy was it for you to create your personal brand in the hobby, and do you enjoy having that personal brand?
Yeah, I think that, if you're true to yourself and your interests, it's very easy to create a brand in the hobby, and it can shift and it can change. Like, my brand started as the Michael Jordan insert art appreciative,
that's right.
Art aficionado, if you will, and like describing the Jordan insert cards that our listeners were obsessed with. And I would get DMs and they'd be like, I've never thought of that, or I've never noticed this, and like, this was a really interesting take. And then it migrated from that to Luca Collector, and then Maxi Kleba Super Collector, and Card Ladder Girl, and and it's just been a fun journey. It's kind of like you're growing up in the hobby, and like sometimes when you grow up, like your interests shift. And I definitely still love cards and art, and interviewing artists and talking to artists, and that's like so amazing to me. But it's easy if you're just honest with yourself and the people that you're like talking to. That authenticity comes across, and authenticity is key in everything that you do.
Definitely. That's the one part I want to circle back to of a lot of good things you said there, was how easy it is. Just literally, Grant Hill was your favorite player, Gary Payton was your favorite player. We just naturally do it. We just show up on Instagram, and like really the question of like, what is your personal brand? It really starts with, what is your Instagram username going to be? It really starts there, and so maybe you come out as Grant Hill Collector or
Kristina's PC.
Exactly. So, we're doing it either way, right? When we participate in social media, when we go to a show, we're doing it either way. It's very easy. It's very natural. But maybe thinking about it a little more intentionally can help make it a bit sharper and cleaner
and
of
what
a
about
personal
you?
brand. What about me?
What about like your thoughts on personal brand, and what is your personal brand?
This whole personal brand idea started occurring to me like a month ago, maybe a little bit less, when there was this like thing going back and forth on Clubhouse. Like there's this debate that happens all the time. We were listening to it when we were driving to Southern California not that long ago, and it was like, do you have to keep your cards forever in order to be considered a collector? Or is there anything wrong with being somebody who doesn't plan to keep any cards? They're just a dealer or a flipper or an investor for a medium term. Is there anything wrong with that? And like, there's always like this thing going back and forth about like, well, maybe there is, maybe there isn't, and it's just becomes these debates, and they're interesting. But the thing that I took away from it is that, well, look, everybody in the hobby has a personal brand. Maybe your personal brand is that you're a dealer. And that's the community that you surround yourself with. Is you're constantly moving from one card to the next. That's your personal brand. collectors, what's the advantage of being a collector? That's a question that people would ask. Like, why would I want to be a collector? Does a collector have to believe that their collection, if it goes to zero, that they still love it and enjoy it and so forth? And I was like, well, one of the great perks to being a collector is that you get to have a really clearly defined personal brand. People associate you with a player, and if you choose a very successful or a very high profile elite player, you get to just associate yourself with an incredibly accomplished player and brand, and there's a lot of prestige that comes along with that. So it's almost too easy. It's like if you come into the hobby and you become a Barry Sanders collector, or our friend Josh Keene has taken to Barry Sanders collecting. What a great brand to be associated with. You're the Barry Sanders guy. You're the guy who collects the most exciting, fun running back from the 90s. That's incredible. I want that brand. I want to be known as the Barry Sanders guy. So there's
You're stepping into Josh's.
Don't worry. I'm not
Okay.
coming for that Barry Sanders line. But so you can build a personal brand just by collecting somebody and just stepping out as a collector, that person. And that's like a hidden benefit to the collecting approach to the hobby that just is there, but nobody's ever really called it out. So that's my take on the personal brand stuff. All right, last question here for Josh. Josh, what advice would you give somebody who is looking to carve out their own personal hobby brand?
Well, first I would rewind this video by about 1 minute and just listen to what Chris had to say, because I think there's a ton of good stuff in there. And also what Kristina had to say before that. I was just honestly just kind of listening to you guys and learning quite a bit myself from all that. There's a lot of great nuggets I hope people pulled. The only other thing I could think of really on the advice side is there's maybe this perception on brand that there's some sort of optimized template that you can follow in order to make a brand. Pick player, name your Instagram account player, post an image of one of each of your cards with a plain colored background, and then make your icons organized. And I think maybe that's not really and then also just post every day and be consistent. I think it's a lot more than that. I think that stuff can help, the consistency and making it nice looking. But I think it's more of just figuring out what you enjoy and what you'll actually want to organically post consistently and every day and through these means. So figuring out what it is you want to start building your brand around is most important, and making sure it's something that you really, really enjoy and you have genuine interest. Otherwise, the cookie cutter template of how to build a brand in the hobby, and I've seen it a bunch of times. People just pick something and just kind of go through that template. I'm not sure that will sustain as long, because you just won't enjoy it as much. That's the last bit of thought I had.
That leads to one thought for me as well. It's in that same vein of avoiding a cookie cutter approach to this. Is Kristina said it earlier. We all evolve, grow up, mature as collectors from the day we started until now. And so if, Josh said, you're making organic, authentic content that really just maps onto what you like, and there's a nice harmony there, then you're going to take people on a journey with you as you develop as a collector of that player, and as you learn about new products and new sets, as you pick up grails, as you trade and make deals with other people in the community, and everybody's going to see that happen. And that's where the content goes from just being good to being great. When it goes from being informative to being a captivating story of your personal arc as a collector, and how your arc fits into the broader arc of the hobby community as a whole. So, wow, good. Glad we got to that segment. That's going to do it this week for Sports Cards Culture. See you guys next week.
Thanks for watching. Tell us in the comment section below what the crew should cover next week, and don't forget to subscribe. See you next time in SCC, Sports Cards Culture.